Good evening and welcome again to the show, formerly known as Ideas of Work and Beyond, but the powers that be, and believe me, there are lurking powers in the trees and all over this studio that are trying to change things. We're gonna go Hollywood. We're gonna go commercial. So the entry is really going to be, welcome to the Marty Heiser Show. Hey, welcome. I'm Marty Heiser. This is my show. All right, I'm a simple man. I work hard, just want to be a good husband, good father, raise my family, play a little golf, and see if we can't move this country ahead. And yet, stuff happens in the last 2 years that has really begun to bother me, and I find it good if I just get it out and sort of write it all down. It started with my health care. I have a little company, a little painting company. We provide health care for folks. Come to find out, with Obamacare being passed, my health care costs have gone up $5,000 over the course of the year. That's a lot of money. Then the next thing that happens is my wife goes to the doctor, a doctor she's seen for many, many years, and all of a sudden, this time when she goes, she has to bring a photo ID. They have to take down her identification and all the information. This is her doctor that she's been going to for many, many years. Then, I'm in the painting business, and all of a sudden there are these new regulations with the EPA that have come out. And I have my managers go to get trained, and the guy from the EPA says, listen, if you know any other contractors that aren't doing that, you drop a dime and have them call the EPA and we'll go get them. First fine starts at $37,000. So all of a sudden we're supposed to be dropping a dime and calling the government on fellow contractors. Then I come to find out that in Obamacare, you remember that bill, it was about this tall, I think 3,200 pages. You remember Nancy Pelosi says, we need to pass this bill so we'll know what's in it. It seems like a pretty strange way to run a railroad as the railroad goes by. In that bill, there's this thing called the 1099 clause. Come to find out, I got to report to the government every entity. It could be someone I buy bleach from for a painting business, paper towels. If I spend more than $600 at a hardware store, I have to send in a file to the federal government to let them know every single person, if it's more than $600 on an annual basis, which if you're running a business is nothing, got to fill out a 1099 form and let the federal government know about this. You know, when you talk about the Tea Party and you talk about Americans just a little concerned that the federal government is getting in our shorts a little bit more than we want, this is what we're talking about. Then I go and I find out that all this, you have to have not only filed the 1099 form, but you have to have a taxpayer ID number for everyone that you paid, not just a person. I understand that if it's a contractor or something like that, but anyone you bought goods from. Then, you know, I come home after all this frustration, all this increased pay, and I just say, you know, I'm just going to go home and relax and watch a little TV. So, click, I put my feet up on the thing, and what happens? But my president comes on, and the president says on television that, hey, Hispanic voters, you need to come out and vote, because if you don't, we can't punish your enemies. Somehow, the president of the United States is telling Hispanic voters that people that don't vote for them or don't vote, you know, according to their dictates are somehow enemies. I thought this president was supposed to be bringing us all together. Then I go on and switch the channel again, and I see Barack Obama giving a speech saying, and let me quote, because I make sure I have this, he says that the Republicans don't want black votes, or the Republicans want black folks to stay home and not vote. That's what my president said on television. Then I go and find out that I switch the channel again, and I find Barack Obama, and he's giving another speech. And in this speech, he's saying, you know, the folks that don't vote with us, they might be able to ride with us, but they got to get to the back of the bus. They got to go back. This is the president. On this set, when Barack Obama was elected the President of the United States, we had a minor celebration. Now, I voted for John McCain, but he was supposed to bring us all together. He was supposed to be, there's no longer a blue state or a red state. He was going to be the post-racist president. All this division and everything like that. And what do I have when I come home and turn on? I'm not looking for trouble. I just turn on my TV. And this is all this happened in the last 5 days. I don't know. I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned about the direction of this country and where it's going. And you know, sometimes when you say, wow, these Tea Party guys, they're a little wacky. What's all this government, don't tread on me kind of stuff? This is just 4 or 5 days in my life trying to run a business, seeing my health care expenses go way up, seeing my wife have to give her photo ID just for going to the doctor, seeing guys getting trained by the EPA and having the EPA say, hey, you know what you need to do? You need to report other contractors and we'll go out and find them. Then come home and hear the president say, I got to get to the back of the bus. The Republicans don't want black folks coming out to vote. And oh, by the way, the Hispanic voters, if you really want to punish your enemies, that's exactly what he said. You got to make sure you come out and vote. Is this America? Can we do any better than this? That's what I think is fueling some of the anger that you're seeing out there. Now, I want a little segment here. We didn't quite have it together enough, but we have what I'm referring to as the jerk of the week. Now, I wish we had video of this guy. I'm sure you've all seen it. This guy's name is something Prophet, Tim Prophet.
I thought it was A/Pole.
Yeah. Al, I don't think you can say that on TV. He's the guy right there. He's the dopey guy right there. Now, if you remember that videotape, he was the one, there was some sort of an altercation out on the street, and this lady was down on the ground, and he took it upon himself to step on this lady's neck. I don't know what his political persuasion is. I think Ron Paul's probably going to win that Senate seat down in Kentucky. But this guy right here, he's a jerk. And he gets the jerk of the week. All right. I'm sorry to rant like that, but it's just a good thing to get it off my chest. We are delighted to have joining us again this evening Bob McGaffey. Thank you so much. Thank you for putting up with my little rant there. We kind of go on and on. And then in addition to Bob, who's the founder of
Right Principles.
Right Principles, and has been very involved with this organization, although there's no real head of the Tea Party, but he's been very involved, and he's going to give us an insight on some of these races and where they're headed. And in addition to that, I am delighted to have Larry Ditkoff. Among other things, he's an investment advisor. He's very good with money, but this guy is probably one of the most intelligent guys I know. The only problem I have with him is that he's a liberal Democrat. And, you know, it's really hard to find liberal Democrats that want to come on and discuss this thing. I hearken back to Ronald Reagan that says, the trouble with my liberal friends, and I consider you a liberal friend, is not that they're ignorant, it's just that they know so much that isn't so. That's what Ronald Reagan said.
You know, first, Marty, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to come on the show. I'm very excited. Nice to meet you as well, Bob. And, you know, I want to thank you for the opportunity to opine, you know, upon my views.
Yes.
If I recall, that's what Walter Mondale said about Ronald Reagan in one of the debates, that it's not what he doesn't know that scares me, it's that what he knows that which isn't so. I think that was Walter Mondale on Reagan.
It could be.
I could be mistaken.
It could be.
You know, Marty, I think anyone who is willing to take time to, you know, have opinions and then, you know, put them forth in a manner in which they can be discussed is worthy of praise. And, you know, I know you've had ideas of Working Beyond for a couple of years, and it's, you know, it's great that you're willing to, you know, get on TV and share your views. And I wouldn't call it a rant. I would call what you just said a heartfelt discourse as to how you feel. As for my comments to it, if I may.
Please.
I don't even know where to begin. I was looking for a pen so I can make some notes. Let's start with, I don't want to start with the health care. What did I want to start with? You were making, you make the points about the, let's see, you said health care, the Tea Party. Oh, let's talk about the contractors, the whistleblowers.
Yeah.
Yeah, the EPA.
Right.
Are you aware that GlaxoSmithKline was recently fined $750 million, agreed to pay a fine for $750 million because they had, amongst other things, knew that they were selling baby ointment which was contaminated. This isn't something that they found out after the fact. They knew at the time, and the only reason why the U.S. government found out about it is because a whistleblower, came forward. So, would you say this individual, who, and I don't know her, I don't recall her name, came forward that she did a bad thing? I'd say no.
I would agree with that. If someone is selling contaminated baby ointment, I think that's a job for the EPA to step in.
Knowingly.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, if you were to, additionally, in the case that you put forth, and again, I'm not exactly sure what, EPA violation that was, and one, it sounds like a question of, maybe honest mistake. What you're talking about in Glaxo's case, a very dangerous situation.
Right.
Maybe it might be forthcoming for someone, and I'm not really for ratting on people to to come forward. That's one thing.
Okay.
You made a point about healthcare, and you made a point about the president's bill. Marty, I think I shouldn't say the president's bill. It was a bill that was hotly debated in both houses of Congress. That was signed and passed, and eventually signed into law by the president. I think his main focus was that every individual should have a certain amount of of health care. You hear these these terrible stories, people who have accidents or illnesses that they simply cannot, they cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars, children, senior citizens, and people simply can't afford to pay it. Maybe Medicare only covers so much, HMOs, to a certain extent.
So now that we have Obamacare, this 3,200-page monstrosity, all those people are going to be taken care of, and people's charging for health care is not going to go up.
I thought it was a 1,300-page monstrosity.
No, it was 3,200.
1,300. Okay, 32.
Hold on one second, because I want to get Bob in here too, because you talk about health care, because I went on the website, the White House website, and you talk about intrusive government. Back in the spring, when we were debating this whole health care thing, they said anyone who's giving out what they construe as false information about healthcare, send in their email, and they were collecting these emails. I went back to the website today, and it said the myth. They had the scenario, myth, fact, myth, fact. This is from the White House website. Businesses will suffer under health reform. That's the myth. This is the fact, according to them. Health insurance reform lowers costs for American businesses, especially small businesses, who are struggling to remain profitable and competitive under the status quo. The independent Congressional Budget Office confirmed that the bill would lower health insurance premiums. That's what this is. I just printed it today off the White House website. Bob McAfee, you heard what I call a rant. He calls intelligent discourse. I'm not sure. It's somewhere in between that.
Heartfelt discourse.
Heartfelt discourse. No, intelligent might be too much. But what are your thoughts on this and what we're talking about? And do you think, and this is just a week in the life of a guy trying to live his life, and the government is intruding at every turn, and this, I think, is what's fueling some of this anger that we're seeing on television. Am I wrong, or where am I off base?
Indeed, I sympathize with your plight this week, I mean, that's what the movement is about. 20 years ago, if you think back about 20 years ago or so, everybody in the country wasn't talking about what the government is doing to them right now. Everybody wasn't talking about what's the government legislating and all the rest of it. And this movement is about pushing back, particularly at federal power, and pushing it back out of our lives. If there are things that need to be handled, for the community, let it reside in the state and the local communities. And a big part of the Tea Party movement is pushing back on federal power. The health care bill must be repealed. It is basically a first major step in socializing medicine. And one of the major problems with it is it's going to raise costs. And the federal government is mandating that if an insurance company is going to offer insurance coverage, they have to offer all these different coverages. And it's a mandate. It drives up the cost. And just in recent weeks, we've seen companies balking at that and saying...
McDonald's said they're going to have to cut 30,000 of their employees off with very small health insurance plan that they have for them, because the numbers just don't add up.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is coming at it. It's not even coming from an insurance angle, which is an insurance angle is a financial mechanism for fortuitous loss, for loss you don't expect. But you know, a visit to the doctor shouldn't cost less than a manicure. And what this does is it drives more usage of the system, which clogs the system. All of these payments, you should be able to buy insurance for what you need it for. There should be all kinds of insurance policies, from catastrophic policies with $5,000 deductibles right on down to low deductible policies that cost more. But it should be the individual's choice what they want to purchase rather than a government mandate. And they should open up the playing field. The more insurance companies in the playing field offering policies and programs, the more competitive it'll be, and the customer will get the better deal out of it. And to mandate all of this, and I mean, it was 3,000 pages because there's a lot of inequality to legislate around in there. Mm-hmm. So, you know, obviously the movement's completely against this, and you know, public opinion polling shows 60 to 70% of the American public is against it.
And they were. I mean, this is the only piece of legislation that I've understood, large legislation, that has become more unpopular after it's been passed. That seems to be the theory that they were operating under, is let's just get this thing passed. I mean, even Speaker Pelosi said, I promise you she said this, I've seen it on video, we need to pass this bill so we can find out what's in it. I mean, I
don't think that's the...
Paul, are you there? Okay, what's your question for our guest? Go right ahead.
It's not a question, it's a statement, and I'd like to see what they have to say about it.
Okay, go ahead.
I just got a flyer from Chris Murphy the other day. He's saying how he's knocking Sam Caligiuri and how you can talk to him because he'll listen.
Right.
I called the campaign headquarters yesterday when I got that, and I told them, I explained my situation about the health care bill, and when I called them the day of the vote to pass it, I told them, don't pass it, I'm against it. And the aide told me, I'll tell him, but he's going to vote for it anyway. And then, you know, I explained to him yesterday that my insurance, open enrollment, from the company I retired from, comes out in October.
Right.
I called them last week. They still don't have any information, but the one thing they told me they could tell me, it's going to be devastating. I'm collecting a small pension for 33 years of service, and now with this health care bill, it's going to wipe out my pension that I paid my small mortgage with. So where is this president get off doing what he's doing? Where does Murphy get off voting on something he doesn't even know what he's voting on? And when I called his office yesterday, I told him he's the last person on the face of the earth. If he was the only man running for Congress, I wouldn't vote for him.
All right. Well, listen, you gave us a lot to chew on. We'll knock that around. Thank you very much. I mean, there you have it. You know, that's what we're hearing out there in the polling, and it just, when they passed this health care bill, there was so much energy, there was so much passion. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't tell us this is going to lower costs. It's not lowering costs. It's raising costs. And these guys went ahead and did it anyways. And this is a democracy where you have power based on the consent of the governed, and the governed was not consenting to having, you know, 20% of the economy taken over by the government. And people are pissed. Yeah. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I can't get any other liberal to come in here to answer this stuff. So here you go.
Okay, well, Marty, you made a, well, first let me just respond to something that Bob said. You're talking about having companies, insurers go across state lines.
Among other things, that's part of it?
That's what I'd agree with that. You made a comment, Marty, about, and I'll get to the caller in a moment, about, well, I don't recall a law that was so unpopular after it was passed.
Yeah.
I'd go back to the '64 Civil Rights Act. It was very, very unpopular, especially down south. And there was tremendous pressure put upon a lot of elected representatives not to vote for it, including, in certain cases, you know, bodily harm. But there were legislators who felt that, you know, this was the right thing to do. And
you know, you bring up a good point. One thing I would say about that, and that was President Johnson that passed that.
That's right.
It was bipartisan. It was Republicans that came over
more
that
Republicans
voted
for
with
it
the
than
Democrats.
Democrats.
Yeah, it was bipartisan.
That's true.
Unlike this health care vote, which was completely passed by one party over the other. Caller, are you there? Yeah, hold on. Go right ahead with your question.
Ask the gentleman with the pink tie to raise his mic. We're having trouble hearing him.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that. Okay, thank you. Do you have a question for the gentleman with the pink tie?
From the field.
All right. Yeah, if you can. I mean, listen, it's so, we're so delighted to have someone that can, come here and discuss some of these issues. We want to get every single word that you have to say. But even with LBJ, and you're right, it was, the Civil Rights Act was unpopular, but it was bipartisan, and it was primarily Republicans coming across and voting with him that helped to pass that. Go ahead.
Well, I wasn't talking about how it was passed. I was talking specifically as to its popularity, and I was talking about, government doing, at least what they felt was right. You might recall Dick Cheney, as vice president, was asked. I don't recall which interviewer. He said, well, most of the people are against the war in Iraq, and he said, so. And do you recall this particular?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, and I think,
they were certainly against the surge, if you recall.
I don't want to get into policy. What I want to talk about specifically here is, should a government do what is popular, or should they do that which they feel is right? And, Dick Cheney felt that, going into Iraq was the right thing to do, and even though a majority of the Americans at the time, were, polls came out and said, the war was very unpopular, that they felt it was the right thing to do, so that's what they did.
Bob?
Yeah, we live in a republic, and we don't decide. We decide who decides.
Right.
They are elected representatives. And every major Democrat joined the Republicans. They're all on tape saying that Saddam Hussein had to be taken out of power, that he had to be dealt with. They all voted for it. Most all of them voted to go into that war and to get that job done.
That is a good point. I mean, in the course of the debate,
and they immediately turned on it.
You can have Dick Cheney say, it's the right thing to do. But we did have a vote, and I think it was virtually unanimous to move ahead.
Well, it certainly wasn't unanimous.
No, it's close.
The point that I'm trying
what was
to
the
make,
vote?
no, I don't know. But my point is, the question was raised: should politicians do that which is unpopular, as opposed to that which they think is right? You were saying that, well, people said the health care bill was unpopular.
Yes.
And they went ahead and passed it anyway.
Right.
So, the question...
Some would say shoved it down our throats.
The point being, well, one, Obama certainly campaigned on it. Two, the people voted for him and voted for a Democratic majority in a wide fashion. And he said, and he told the people, this is what I'm going to do. And and that's what he went ahead and did. And that's what he thought was the right thing. And there's something I'd like to... I would like to raise. And, anytime you have, tax issues or, who gets the value, who gets services, who contributes, who takes, there's always, to a certain extent, redistributionist issues. And we as a country, have to make a determination.
Go ahead.
Okay, we as a country have to make a determination, about what's appropriate and, and what's not. I can tell you that there's an individual who I know who has terrible shoulder pain. He has a cracked clavicle, he has a rotator cuff tear. Mine's bad. Actually, mine is probably worse. I had a joint replacement in my shoulder. But either way, this individual, through a variety of circumstances, really has no coverage, no health care. And, if we did nothing for him, then, he'd be essentially writhing in pain, for the rest of his life. So...
Okay, so you've had a couple examples. One was the contaminated baby lotion.
Right.
Okay.
That was
another is your friend with the hurt shoulder, and then there was someone else who had not good health care. And then your answer to all this is an all-powerful EPA that's going to turn one citizen contractor against another, and then an all-powerful healthcare system that's going to make sure that everyone gets the same level of coverage, and no one with a hurt shoulder or anything else will be uncovered. And that's what you say, this 3,200-page monstrosity that, oh, by the way, also included somehow 1099s that we have to fill out for anything that we pay over $600 for over the course of a year, while getting that person's tax ID number to do that isn't intrusive, overbearing and not what the people want.
Marty, 1099s for $600. I don't know this specific term. I mean, the specific regulation within the healthcare bill, but I can tell you, it's been around, for quite some time. If you don't believe me, you might want to give Tom Daschle a call and ask him about his. No, I'm not.
That's CNN.
Okay.
That's one of the liberal ones, so you know it's correct. That's what it is.
No,
Anything
I know
over
what I'm saying.
it's a
There been $600. Any business that pays a contractor more than $600.
It's not a contractor, though. That's the
okay.
point.
But
I could buy $600 worth of bleach. I got to fill it out and go send, okay, bleach company, what's your tax ID number? Okay. Hey, federal government, I sent, Strauss Paper $600 worth of bleach for my company. Here, we reported it.
Yeah, Marty, things, go in cycles. When Ronald Reagan...
Cut that to the tape, because we're about to have an election. From your lips to God's ears, things go in cycles.
Okay, that's not an epiphany for you. I understand. But when Ronald Reagan was elected, and I think we discussed this once, 2 days after he took office, IAWAB102810, he had sunshine committees designed for deregulation. That was his thing.
Yes.
Got to get government off the backs of the people.
Exactly.
And under his watch, a lot of, him and Bush 41, for example, there was tremendous deregulation in the financial services industry.
That's right.
Led to the savings and loan crisis. You look at.
Can you hold that thought for 1 second? Because I want to get to Bob too.
Yeah. Sure.
But I would support to you, or I would pledge to you, or I would submit to you that there are regulations, there are booms and busts within the life of a capitalist free market.
Right.
They've gone back to, I don't know, like
Adam Smith's day.
Adam Smith Day, 1776, the wealth of nations. That's the price of freedom. We've had recessions, we've had booms, we had the .com thing, we'd have the housing thing and everything else. And so if you're going to say that every time the marketplace has a boom or a bust, whoever was in government wasn't regulating enough, and don't you see what happens when you give people freedom? They go off and have booms and busts. I just don't know if I'm buying it. But hold that thought. Bob, we're going to go to you, but before we do, we have an interview with Michael Steele. This is an incredible, exciting interview, and I think we had that queued up with our highly technical crack team here, and we're ready to go right to that. Are we ready?
This is the mini camera again.
This is a mini camera. Some people have big cameras. We have very compact cameras. So if we're ready, let's roll the videotape. Bus. We're getting ready to go talk to Michael Steele, the man himself. Come on with us, because on our show, we go places. We're going on the bus.
We get the truth.
You guys hanging in there? I'm well. Doing very well. Good to see you guys. God bless you, man. God bless you. You need a drink? I'm not drinking. Oh, my gosh. Oh, you're right. That's right. You're right. I'm tired about that. Did you just get a haircut? That's like me, man. That's right. I wish I could you get a haircut by your people. Right.
This is it, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Get Rid of Pelosi bus.
There you go.
And we are delighted to have the chairman of the Republican Party. We're not talking about town chairman, state chairman. We're talking about national chairman of the Republican Party. And I just thank you so much for giving me a few minutes.
Absolutely.
So we're here with Michael Steele. Michael, we only have a few questions.
Sure.
You're on the brink of an historic victory from the Republican Party. What are your thoughts, and what do we need to do to not screw this up?
You took the words right out of my mouth. As I've said to folks all around the country, we've been on this bus tour since September 15th. It's 48 states, 15,000 miles. We've got 4 states left to do. And what I've said in every instance is, do not be comfortable. We need you to be uncomfortable for the next 7 days. If you thought you've done it all, realize you haven't. There's more doors to be knocked, more signs to be waved, more dollars to be raised to help our candidates. You've got to get out there and be a part of making this thing happen, because it's just not going to happen because we want it to. Right. It's not going to happen because we feel it will. It's only going to happen when you show up and get a friend to the polls. Look at it this way, 4 for 1. 1 car, 4 people in it going to the polls. That's what we're looking for. We want everybody, every activist out there to find a neighbor friend, put them in the car with you, grab that crazy uncle off the couch, get them in the car, take them to the polls on Election Day to vote a strong Republican ticket for Connecticut.
Michael, I don't know if you realize this, but this is Connecticut. Outside that tinted glass, this is a pretty liberal state. Luckily, we have people like John Fry here and Jim Carroll that keep, the Republican Party down. But what can you say to maybe some of those Democrats that might otherwise not vote for Republican? What can you tell them? Because the election's coming up.
Yeah, I'll tell you straight. Look, I'm from Maryland, so Maryland and Connecticut are like twin sisters. I understand it. I got elected statewide as Lieutenant Governor of Maryland. Ran against a Kennedy, so it can happen. How did it happen? Because we were direct, we were honest, we had an agenda for the people of Maryland to take the state in a different place, in a different direction, and that's what we're asking right now. Think about the taxes you're paying. Think about the burdens that are going to be placed on you through this healthcare behemoth that's coming online in January. Think about your small businesses that aren't creating jobs. Republican leadership, whether you're talking for governor, for the United States Senate, with Linda McMahon, Mr. Foley and his ticket, where you're talking for Congress, at all levels, Republicans are talking about job creation, wealth creation, restoring the integrity of the system by getting good leadership in place. So, take a chance. I mean, what do you have to lose? It won't get any worse, trust me, because we're telling you where we're going. We're going to a better place. We're laying out a better agenda. Look at the leadership that we've got here in this state. It's exciting. The races are close for a reason. That's because people are paying attention to what they're saying. They like what they're saying. And now we just ask you to help us get across the finish line. It's not for us as a party, but it's for you as citizens of Connecticut. What you want done over the next 4 years, next 2 years, are your interests being protected?
You're the chairman of the Republican Party. If these people take a runner and vote for a Republican this time around, and they don't provide jobs for the economy, if they don't provide strong fiscal restraint, and if they don't rein in some of these taxes and spending, can we throw the Republicans out?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is an election that it has 2 elements of it that are very important, that a lot of our candidates have been speaking to: accountability with consequences, being held accountable for what they're saying to the voters now. If they don't get it done, the consequence is 2 years from now, if you're in Congress, or 4 years from now, if you're in statewide office, you're going to be unelected. Is that the reality right there?
Michael Steele, right here, chairman of the Republican Party. If you don't keep these Republicans in line once we send them up there, I'm coming after you.
Well, look,
I know where you live. I got your email. We'll get you.
Hey, look, if I don't come after you first, right?
All right. I want to thank you very much for being on the show.
Final question. What's the headline of the New York Times going to read the day after the election?
That's a good question. I think the headline's going to be something along the lines, Republican sweep.
America won.
America won.
All
There
right.
you go.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me on your podcast. All right, well, there you have it. Michael Steele, the chairman of the Republican National Committee. Bob, what do you think the election results are going to be? What are you seeing out there on the streets? What are you sensing?
Oh, I mean, there's been a wave building, and it's going to come right through Election Day, and we expect, in large part, Republicans to have a good night. Well, I don't sit and get a lot of polls. I'm not a mechanic. I'm not a political mechanic. I don't know how it's going to work out. I know the House, that they've got to take the House. Senate looks close. But it's what they do with it, which is going to count. They're going to come in, and this victory, this wave is not engineered by Michael Steele whatsoever. It's engineered in the streets by the Tea Party, by the grassroots. And anybody elected this election on the Republican side is on probation. And we've been demonstrating for the last year and a half against the statists, largely in the Democrat Party, many of them in the Republican Party. We've knocked a bunch of them out in the primaries. But any Republican thinks he's coming in and they can do what they want, do their old game, is in for a big surprise.
We're all going to be saved by the Mama Grizzlies, right?
We'll be protesting their offices. I mean, we protest Hines' office. If he gets knocked out and Debicella doesn't have a spine, we'll go in there and help engineer a spine for him. Or he's going to wish he didn't win the election. And, you know, that's the only way. Hold their feet to the fire. How many times do we have to run this experiment?
You're making me a little nervous here. This is, I mean, the energy's incredible. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, we rolled the whole thing in 94, and then, you know, we had several good years of governance. They held Clinton's feet to the fire, got the budget under control, produced a surplus by the turn of the century, and then went on a spending binge and brought in all these country club rhino Republicans, and they spent their way out trying to sate the desires of the Democrats to make themselves liked by the Democrats, and look where it ended up. It's a mess. They destroyed the brand. We get this thing straightened out. Unfortunately, we're going to have to stand there and hold their feet to the fire and make sure they perform.
All right. Well, we're joined by Dave Straight and Al Robinson. And Dave, as my witness at this event, did we not talk to Mayor Boughton, who you didn't recognize at first, by the way?
He didn't recognize
and
me.
And why did he say he wouldn't come on the show? Why? Why? What's the guy's
terrified of Al.
Al Robinson.
Terrified.
Al?
It's a big baby.
What's
The hell with him.
What you've been listening to all this.
Finally have an honest politician.
You've seen what we're talking about. You seem to be, you know, kind of ground us, bring us back down to earth, and you know, kind of wreck all the positive optimism we have that Republicans are going to sweep in Connecticut. What are you seeing?
Well, you're talking about sweeping in Connecticut. Let's just break it down real quick. I don't see you winning in the first, honestly. I'm going to be blunt and real quick. You're not going to win in the first. You're not going to win in the second. Probably most likely will not win in the third. Polls coming out right now showing Larson with a comfortable lead over Ann Brickley. Janet Peckinpah is awful. Joe Courtney, and I think anybody would acknowledge Janet Peckinpah has had an absolutely atrocious campaign. Joe Courtney will be winning that. Rosa DeLaura will be easily winning against Jerry, whose campaign manager was one of the major Tea Party backers, Tanya Blanchard, I think her name was. Bashad, yeah, well, one of those weird names. 4th District, you got Jim Himes going up against Dan DiBasella. We'll see what happens with that. I think right now, at this state, all the talking, all the rebel rousing, all the stuff we're doing right here is irrelevant. Right now, the last 2 weeks of the campaign, I always said, you watch elections, wait till the last month. Everything you did before that is irrelevant. It comes down to one thing: get out the vote. Whoever's camp can get out more people to come to the polls are going to win, and that's it. And that's where it comes down to. Now,
can I ask you a question on that point?
Go ahead.
Do you think in this election cycle the Republicans are vastly more motivated than the Democrats?
It remains to be. We'll know after Election Day. It's really hard to get a feel of things. You can watch polls. You can see what's going on out here. You can watch Tea Party activists do their things. But you know, I got information here. Like the last time Mr. McGuffey was on this show, we asked him a few questions, such as if he was ever affiliated with Freedom Works. He said no. I did a simple Google search like you told me, find out that he was affiliated with Freedom Works. He was a volunteer with a site called Tea Party Patriots, was affiliated with Freedom Works, as well as putting out memos showing how to disrupt town hall meetings and what you should do as Tea Party people, disrupt town hall meetings. So there's a lot of information on him, and I would encourage people to really read what McGuffey has done, because this type of stuff right here is more of a way to give the impression that, you know, there's a lot of anger going on during these town hall meetings on health care. And it was orchestrated in a way that anybody can look up online. It took me a few minutes to do.
Okay.
But I just, to be real quick on you,
yeah.
I will see after Election Day, again, it comes down to getting out the vote. It's one thing to be out there yelling and screaming. It's another thing to be on the phones, calling people, doing the stuff that you know that needs to be done in town committees. Got to get on the phone to get those people to come out to vote.
Before I let Bob respond, but you seem to be discounting this Tea Party movement.
Yes.
But I would submit to you that they won in New Jersey. They won in Massachusetts and actually won Barney Frank's district when Scott Brown won. I think they won in Virginia. I think Scott Brown district won the Senate, and in Barney Frank's congressional district, he won.
He won.
In that district. Okay? And by the way, Barney Franks has just put $200,000 of his own money in the campaign because he's holding on for dear life as well. Some would say that he brought about.
Again, we'll see what happens. It's, you know,
okay, but I mean, you seem to be discounting. Let's just take, and then I'm going to let Bob answer. But for example, anger expressed at the town hall meetings. You seem to indicate that this guy sat at his computer, wrote a memo, and that's what spontaneously caused all these mind-numb robots to be upset at town hall meetings.
What I'm saying again is that. What I'm saying again, and we can go back to the videotape or we can go to YouTube, we specifically asked him if he was affiliated or did anything with Freedom Works. I asked him that, you asked him that as well. He emphatically said no.
Correct.
Did a simple search on Google, Come to find out, not only was he affiliated or volunteered to do stuff on the website for FreedomWorks, he did a lot of other stuff as well.
All right.
Which was not
to
only
me, it's no big deal because I like FreedomWorks.
No.
I don't think it's a big problem, and I don't think. But we have the man right here.
No,
He's not a potted plant. Here's a potted plant.
Go right
Here's
ahead.
a real guy. So go ahead and respond to what he's going.
All right. The big issue when the memo surfaced and was flung up by Talking Points memo into the mainstream media was whether the charge was I was operative for FreedomWorks. Yeah. And in order to draw that connection, the people inside the Talking Points memo looked at the fact that in April of that year I blogged on a Tea Party Patriot site somewhere. Hadn't blogged from April to July. I wrote something. I answered something once on a Tea Party Patriot, and it said, and the connection they drew was because FreedomWorks sponsored something about Tea Party Patriots. So they're back in the background somewhere. What we did is we went down to our congressman, Jim Himes, and he had been in office for 4 months and had already spent $2.5 trillion of new public debt, and we went in there to challenge him on that, and challenge him we did. And when we're standing in the back of the room when they're setting this up, his staff is saying, oh, we'll get some good pictures and sound and everything. We all know town halls are staged so that the congressman can get nice pictures and all nonsense so he could say he's talking and dialoguing with. He's not dialoguing with anybody. It's one way. So we decided to go in there and challenge him and push back at him hard. As soon as he started blaming Bush or making misstatements, we challenged him, and we started rattling him to get him to answer some questions. And several of us got the mic and did that. And that's what happens to a congressman who just gets into office and starts running up trillions of dollars of debt, doing what large segment of his constituency was adamantly opposed to, were in the street demonstrating against. So this is what he's going to get. If you're going to rule against the American people, you're going to get pushback, and that's what that memo was about.
Dave, did you were right here at this table, right? Right. And you said that the mayor of Danbury was afraid to come in, or didn't want to come in here because he was afraid of Al. Do you think he was afraid that Al was going to ask some tough questions of the mayor of Danbury?
I'd say. Yeah.
Anyhow, what did you just call the mayor of Danbury? I think you just called him...
I think I call him the same terminology you would call Jim Himes over the years.
Okay, that's exactly... You've made my point for me. You know, this is a democracy. No one put a gun to these people's head to run for public office.
Absolutely.
And if you're not... it's a contact sport, and if you're unwilling to go to a town hall meeting and have some, crazy guy like Bob, not crazy, I'm just saying in a positive way, to come in and ask you tough questions, and if you somehow construe from that there's some sort of vague conspiracy going on, I'm telling you, people are ticked off, and you're going to see it next week on Tuesday.
In his memo, it says here, in the first paragraph, which is something called Inside the Hall, watch for an opportunity to yell out and challenge the representative's statements early. If he blames Bush for something or offers other excuses, call him out on it, yell back, and have somebody else follow out and shout out.
Darn good advice. Can I get a copy of that, Mel?
If he says something outrageous, stand up and shout out again.
You're on the air.
Opportunities before he even takes questions.
Marty, love the show. I've got a question for, I didn't catch his name, the fellow with the pink...
The pink tie. His name is Larry Ditkoff. Yeah. The fellow with the pink tie, though. That could hold, yeah.
Okay. And Al, although we are ideologically very different, I think you're delightfully entertaining and great for the show.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Al, you brought up disrupting town hall meetings with regard to health care. I'm a real simple guy. Answer me this. I own and run a small company, over 20 employees here in Connecticut. We provide a great health care plan and 70% of the contribution. Unheard of amongst our peers in this area. I will be mandated to offer and carry a version of Obamacare, and my business can't afford both. Do I drop the great plan and carry only a lesser plan? Al, if you were in my shoes, or Larry, if you were in my shoes, what do you do, and how do you think my employees feel right now? They know this. Some of them voted for Obama. What do I do? Marty, thanks for
excellent. Good. Thanks for the call. So, what do you say?
You throw the Democrats out.
I would say that he said change it for Obamacare. I mean, my impression is there is no national health care program, so I don't know what Obamacare is.
Obamacare is the mother of all unfunded mandates.
I mean, is there a national health care thing that we can sign up to? Either you do this private thing or you go up to the national single payer thing.
No, they wouldn't allow the government option. Remember?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. He's talking about a government option. There is no government option. There was no government option. So again, I don't quite get what's being said.
It's the mandates he's talking about.
No, that's not what he said. He said, he said either I have this or I have that.
The Democratic
so
senator,
I don't know what that means.
Democratic senator from Tennessee wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal this week and came out and said that they would be much better off paying the $2,000 fine and dropping their health care coverage and having these people go out and get coverage on their own.
Dave, Corker and Alexander are both Republicans in Tennessee.
Well, then it wasn't Tennessee, but it was in the Wall Street Journal, and it was a Democratic senator that wrote the article. And they said that we are better off as a state to tell people to pay the $2,000 fine on health care and cut these people loose and tell them to go get their own.
Again, I don't know who made that statement. I don't know. I got to verify that. We got to look at stuff, but there's a lot of information, including.
All right, well, let's take this one step at a time, really slow.
Okay.
Are there specific mandates directed by Obamacare? Are there? I mean, I can name a couple. You have to keep people on until they're 26, even if they live at home. You can't deny for pre-existing conditions.
Right.
Yeah, okay, so we can all agree that there are these mandates, right?
Marty, can I, if I may? I'm sorry. You know, Marty, one of the things, I think it's one of the mistakes people do, and they do it in taxes more than anything else, is they look at individual pieces of legislation singularly as opposed to in its entirety. You know, I appreciate the callers. Bob doesn't agree. I appreciate the caller's concern about.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
I mean, Marty.
Okay, go ahead.
Aren't I one of the smartest guys you know?
You are, which may say I got to get out more and broaden my,
we'll give you a chance.
Group of friends.
President Obama, for example, wanted small business to have 100% depreciation on all capital expenditures for, I forget, a certain period of time, to lower their tax base. He also wanted lower tax rates on small business. So actually, he got that passed. So there's, maybe there's higher costs, on health care, even though it did allow for other people who previously didn't have coverage to have some coverage. But there are other things that he's done which I think people on the other side give him absolutely no credit for. I also think when you hear a guy like Mitch McConnell go out and say, and this to me was very telling, he didn't say, oh, the number one political goal. He said the number one goal for the Republicans is to get Obama out in 2012.
Right.
And then subsequently he said, and the number one political goal, as if getting Obama out wasn't a political goal, he said the number one political goal was something else. I mean,
imagine that the leader of the Republican Party in the Senate wants to get away. I am stunned.
You didn't hear him saying, well, we have 9.7. I don't know what the jobs report was this morning. I didn't see, but what the 9.7% unemployment. Let's make that the top goal. Or let's make sure, even though our troops are out of Iraq, let's get the troops back out of Afghanistan. Maybe that should be the top goal.
No,
that's
okay. Well, what you just said is you expect my highly educated audience to say that Barack Obama really wants to lower taxes. Is that what you're saying? If that's the case, why doesn't he lower? Why doesn't he continue the Bush tax cuts?
You want to talk about the Bush tax?
Not really, but because he doesn't want to. He said it over the
back over here, Marty. Listen, glad to have you on the show to hold. We always preach that we always get the truth here, right? You're right. I was right on 2 out of 3 things. Number 1, it was a Democrat. Number 2, they were from Tennessee,
who is it?
But they happened to be the governor, and it was Mr. Bredesen. Yes.
Come on.
And he said.
You're right 1 out of 3.
No, I was right 2 out of 3. I said Tennessee, Democrat. I had senator, and it was governor.
Right.
Yeah. Who cares? You get the point. So the point is, here's his quote. If we keep our existing insurance plan, our cost will be $346 million. We can reduce our annual cost by over $146 million using the legislative mechanics of health care reform to transfer them to the federal government. Enough said. The fact of the matter is that health care program was a disaster, and it was all about power. And if you don't think it's going to cause rationing in health care, you're just plain wrong. It will ration health care and ensure mediocrity for everyone.
Bob, your thoughts?
Well, it was designed to move everybody towards the need for a government option because of the mandates and the costs and the ability of paying a modest fine to push everybody off. If they wanted to do health care right, now Mr. Obama campaigned on solving the problem, not on the terms that bill ultimately came about. If they wanted to solve the problem, they would have held public hearings on the problems with the whole healthcare industry, the delivery and financing and administering of medicine. They would have held public hearings and came up with maybe the 5 or 6 major problems in the system and crafted some legislation around that.
No.
Instead, this was created behind closed doors by Democrat consultants, and they put a 3,000-page bill out, and they don't even know what was in it when they put it out.
Someone said it was going to be on C-SPAN. I'm pretty sure that was one of the promises too. This whole thing was going to be discussed on C-SPAN.
The man campaigned on post-partisanship and goes in as the most partisan guy. He pushes the Republicans out of the meetings, doesn't listen seriously to anything they had to say. And I thought when he was coming in, he would be adopting some of the best conservative ideas, because he said he was going to reach across the aisle and be post-partisan. He has nothing to do with it. He's put forth a socialist agenda and went after health care, 16% of the economy. It is most assuredly a socialist agenda.
Caller, are you there? Go ahead. Help us out. It's getting a little heated here. Bring some semblance of sanity here. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, I'm here, Marty. And I couldn't agree with Bob any more than he's talking. I agree with him 100%. And as far as the caller with the pink tie.
The pink tie, yeah. We call him Larry.
I think he has
pink tie is good.
Yeah,
I like it. It's very metro.
Yes.
Go ahead.
He made the statement a little while ago in his conversation that Obama said that you can keep your own insurance if you don't like what you see. Well, from past experience, from what I see, other healthcare business is going to be put out, like you said, with the small companies, the big businesses, because you're not going to be able to afford to do it. The reason Obama went for this, and I don't care what anybody says, I'll stand by my convictions. He wants a single payer. He doesn't want any public option, a single payer.
All right. Thank you very much. I think I appreciate your point very much.
We got to get that person on the show.
Marty, we've only had...
That person calls up before we put the phone number up there.
We've only had, it's unfortunate because I know we're almost out of time, but we really haven't, we've discussed the health care, issue more, pretty much to the exclusion of everything else. A couple of points I did want to make, just going back to your heartfelt discourse.
Yes.
At the beginning of the show. You mentioned Latinos. You mentioned what Obama had said about,
punish your enemies.
Punish your enemies.
Yeah.
Have you seen the ad Sharon Angle has run in Nevada?
I have not seen it.
She's not the president, though.
He's the president.
No, we're making points.
Did you ever see a president speak like that?
We're making points about what the Democrats are doing, or you were saying, I hear this and I find it, disturbing that someone's, he's trying to be...
Not someone. It's the president of the United States.
He's the most divisive president we've ever had.
Like a war politician from Chicago.
I don't know, Dave. You might want to go back a couple of years.
I don't know.
Like two. To find someone more, someone more divisive.
Well, what did Bush say? What did Bush say to divide people?
Yeah.
Never.
Well, okay.
You'd have to go back to Nixon to find anything like that.
Look. Well, I mean, it's.
But even he did it behind closed doors, just because they had tapes going.
Go ahead,
Al.
For you, you're talking about Latinos and African American vote. I've been dying to talk to you about this for a while. This has been widely popular on the internet and in some other forms in the media. It might even become more popular. You stated on this show with Dan DiBasella here that you had inside information, or you had inside knowledge that black ministers in Bridgeport were doing a cash for vote scheme in which they're going around the communities and handing out cash.
I don't think he ever said black. He never said black.
African American ministers.
Never said that.
Yes, he did. And he alluded to it because he said Jim Hines was going to one of these
I believe it's churches. I don't think it's cash for votes, but I think it's called walking around money.
Walking around money.
Yeah, that's walking around money.
The clip is up there, and anybody can see it. I've watched it a few times. I was somewhat amazed by that accusation.
Yeah, I think DiBasella called it a felony.
Yeah, he called it.
You're going to deny there's walking around money in Bridgeport?
I would say so because
please.
In order to say that,
Bob, what do you know about this?
Well, I know there is.
How do you
know there is because I know the people that are doing it.
Was there a complaint filed? Is there any evidence to back that up?
It doesn't do anything to file the complaints.
What do you think Hines is doing down there?
No, that's crazy.
If you can't prosecute the Black Panthers...
Do you have any evidence to support that statement?
Do I personally know? I don't make it... No.
Marty, why is the individual actually said it? Do you have any anything to back that up.
You wouldn't deny. You're actually denying that. Then you're not being serious.
Well, I'm,
you know that
I'm asking you for evidence or some.
So you're going to rely on that. You're going to rely on that.
I have evidence of you doing all this disruption to town hall meetings. I came here with it after you asked me to. But again, I'm asking you. You had inside knowledge of this. What is it?
Well,
because
I know people in Bridgeport.
That's it.
Yeah, I know people in Bridgeport. I know people that were at the meeting. I know people that went to the meeting with Jim Hines. It was like the Minority Clergy Association.
No, this was
meeting
before the meeting actually happened.
Yeah.
A few days, you said you have inside knowledge that.
Yeah, I know someone that was in the meeting.
In 08, there was $250,000 of walking around money in Bridgeport, and I understand it's going to be the same.
Was there a complaint filed about that or anything, or is it just innuendo?
What? Oh, innuendo was told to me by people that saw it going on.
So why didn't you file a complaint?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us once again for a show formerly known as Ideas of Work and Beyond, but no one really knows what that means. So we're calling it the Marty Heiser Show. I just got to get past that a little bit. It sounds a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Self-serving and, what's that Greek guy? Egotistical, nice. Yeah. That was it. Anyways, but thanks a lot for watching. Next week, it'll all be over. We'll know who won, who didn't win, who's in, who's out, and then this thing will just continue to go on. We're going to have some young folks from the Ridgefield Boys and Girls Club, also Ridgefield High School play, and then we also have... Who else coming up?
We'll have some Danbury Whaler stuff.
Danbury Whalers, some hockey players. That's what we're going to be doing. And also, we're on Cablevision, so you can watch us on Cablevision. You know, they might not have Fox. They might not have the World Series, but you have the Marty Heiser Show, 4:30, channel 88 on Cablevision. And you know what? We do this for free. So you don't got to pay us any money, so we'll never get a cut.